Welcome to Fiction and Focus, a podcast where we explore the craft of writing without taking ourselves too seriously. I'm Nathan Harms.
And I'm Wesley Watts. Each episode, we'll discuss uplifting topics like the soul-crushing pressure of expectations, the suffocating grip of self-doubt, and the swift kicking unmentionables of rejection.
We'll share our experiences, struggles, and heartaches in the hope that you might find some small measure of comfort in our collective misery, or at least have a laugh at our expense.
So grab a pen, paper, and your favorite writing snack, and join us as we put fiction in focus.
Welcome, word nerds, to Fiction in Focus. I am your, one of two hosts, Nathan Harms, and we also have Wesley Watts, as usual.
As usual.
We've had a couple guests on the show. They're far more charming than we are, but I think we have sultry, smooth voices, if you will. Very relaxing.
That radio sound.
Yes, sir. So thank you for joining us. Again, we're still doing this. We're still going. I think we're getting a little better as we go, too. We're going to bring back one of our favorite segments, I guess. We've done it a couple times. And we are going to discuss what we are reading and what we are working on. So, Wesley, nice. I'm going to start off with you.
Okay. For reading or writing?
Let's start with reading.
So, it's a little embarrassing to be a writer and saying this, but I'm not reading anything right now.
Nice.
I just got this. I'm pretty excited to start this. Joe Abercrombie.
Nice. For those of you just listening, he reached back and pulled a book from the shelf, slowly revealing. That's a big boy.
Sensual. Yeah, it's got some meat to it.
Wow.
I've never actually read Joe Abercrombie, but from what I understand, he's kind of like grimdark. So, everybody dies, that sort of thing.
Nice.
I'm just waiting to get a new pair of glasses because reading paper print is tough with these glasses. Yeah. And I'm blind. So, those should be in a couple of days, and I'm going to start this bad boy.
Yeah, you should be on that for a minute.
Yeah, like I'm not a very fast reader, so that'll take me some time.
Like a weekend?
I wish.
Like 6 months. That's how I am. If it's like a really thick book, it's like, because I'm usually not like spending like an hour a day reading. It's like a little bit before bed or like when I'm just kind of sitting around.
It really depends on like how engrossed I get into it. Yeah. So if I really get into something, like I can blow through like a book pretty quick, but I really have to get engrossed, and then it usually like comes at the expense of other things like writing or showering, whatever.
Hygiene.
Yeah.
Basic.
How about you? What about you? What are you reading?
So right now I'm preparing to get together with my writers group this coming week, which by the time this airs will be in the past, but now it's in my future.
Time travel.
Time travel. In the Riker tone. I
wonder if we can get that clip and just
creating a temporal vortex. Time travel.
So because I'm doing that, I got to sit down and read the other three guys what they're working on and so on. And two of them just sent short stories. One about basically this guy following his wife, who he thought was out of town but is with another man, and it's pretty heartbreaking. And then has a sci-fi ending that makes no sense and just kind of blows your mind a little bit.
Okay.
And left very ambiguous. So my buddy AJ wrote that. I'm going to have to give him a hug when I see him because, make sure he's okay.
Is he married?
He is married. Well, I think last time I checked.
Maybe not anymore.
We'll know when I'm like, edit that part out. My buddy Johnny is working on his next book and sent like 6 chapters and flew through that. And my buddy Seth is just writing fucked up shit as usual that makes you question your own reality and makes you like read something 3 times to know what he's saying because he just wants to screw with your head. And then I sent them a story about a fox and a ghost. So, but yeah, no, I've been reading that. It's kind of nice because we don't overload each other unless we have like a full release coming out or finished. So we'll just send snippets or a short story or
Like, how many words do you think you guys trade at a time?
It depends. Yeah, I mean, anywhere from like usually 1,000 to 6,000 is like max. Like I said, unless we have like a book done, and even then, we usually like precurse it. Like we send it, we're like, "Hey, here's the whole thing. You don't have to read it all, but if you want to." And there's always one of us who's just like, "I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I got through like 2 chapters. I've been busy, and we don't care. It's not like a big deal,
Right.
No one's offended by the fact that we all have lives. So, but yeah, that's what I've been reading.
That's what they tell you, and they're like, I was really just bored out of my fucking mind. And
truthfully, they only invite me to every like 3rd get together because they're like, oh, there's that asshole. What you been writing?
Oh, geez. That's a Pandora's box. So, I've been trying to write, continue writing Choosing Chaos. And as you know, I've started that like, 3 times? Like, I've started it completely from scratch over like 3 times now. I've re-outlined it several times. I'm on the fence at this point. I'm kind of just considering saying it beat me for the moment, putting it aside and maybe writing something else as a palate cleanser. But I've got a couple of ideas for what I could write, and I'm not sure, like, I'm not steering one direction or another because I've got like I've got that Pinocchio retelling that I don't know if I've told you about.
A little bit, yeah.
But because that deals with themes of like seeing the truth through media, and it's crazy. I had this idea like 10 years ago for this book. But like I saw the possibility of deep fakes and computer generated content overlapping the real world and basically fucking up society.
Right.
So I had this idea, like this character that can see through that, and they're the only one, and that sort of thing. And then I was like, oh, that could be a Pinocchio. So then this person turned into an android.
Yeah.
That wants to like understand what it's like to be really human. And so I had that all set up in my mind, the basics, like that's not a full plot or anything. And someday I want to write it, but right now that feels too close to home, doesn't it? Like
a little bit.
Yeah. Like,
it's a weird time. It's like growing pains in our society when it comes to like creativity and like media and stuff like that. So yeah, it's weird. It's like you want to write whatever's on your mind, but like sometimes you want to escape what's going on in the world. So it's like, do I really want to dig in and write about something that's relevant right now? Or do I want to run away?
Yeah, I don't think I can. I don't think I've got it in me. So that one's probably not on the table. Let's see. I've got like like this idea for some paranormal smut.
Oh, nice.
But like that's just like the kernel of an idea. I don't know if it's ready to start trying to like turn into something. Then I've got my vampire book. You actually read the beginning of that, like the first paragraph, where it's about a vampire. Like the whole society is vampires. Humanity is just basically cattle. They're kept in like ranches, and the main character is going to be a health food safety inspector.
Yeah.
So that one's probably on the top of the list. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a fun idea. Would you go like a little bit dark comedy with that? Like, would there be like just because like the idea of like the health inspector, like obviously they're inspecting the humans, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, you could have some fun with that. Like just like tongue in cheek. Like I feel like you could get a little wacky with that, with some of the, yeah.
I'd love to. Like, that would be a really cool direction to take it, but I don't know if I'm the writer to do that.
Right.
I'm just not very funny. So,
said the guy who wanted to start a podcast.
Right. So, like I don't understand how to write humor at all. So
Right.
I wish I did. I don't,
Yeah.
maybe that's something I can try to branch out to, but I do have a pretty solid idea for the plot of where that one can go. Maybe that'll be the one, but I haven't decided entirely, even because I really don't want to put Choosing Chaos aside.
Right.
But
Well, especially off the heels of it's the first book coming out.
Yeah.
And because it's been, from what I've seen, really loved by at least certain people and so on. And
yeah, like it hasn't found a huge audience yet, but what it has
Yeah.
found, like I've gotten messages from people I don't even know wanting the next book.
right,
And
no pressure.
yeah,
No, I think a palate cleanser is good though. Like even if you're just outlining something else and you don't actually dig into it,
maybe that'd be
That-
enough.
yeah, that might be enough. And I've done that too. Like sometimes I just have to step back from. I mean, I've left some books that I finished, but I've left some books that are actually really close to being done, and I just can't cross the finish line for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I'll like just do something else for like a few weeks. Even a few days. Like you'd be surprised, and then like you hear it just calling to you in the back of your head, like, "Come back to me."
That's kind of what I need. I need it to be calling to me.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before. We both do this where we go to bed at night and we start thinking of the next scene and kind of running through it and that sort of thing. And that should have been a clue to me that that's not happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I need to change something. Yeah, enough about me. What about you?
So I just finished a mystery horror novel. It's 6,000 words, generated entirely by AI, only using prompts. I sent it to you. Was it good? I haven't read it.
It was the best thing I have ever read. I didn't know we were going to be talking about that tonight.
No, I'm only just I'm gonna mention, I'm just the carrot to get people to tune in the future episode. And all I'll say is this: we are going to do our AI episode. We talk about it every episode, but I think this might be the catalyst that brings us to that. But yeah, I inputted a bunch of prompts, and I was like, "Here you go," and I literally haven't read it. And I will say this: spoiler alert from reading a little bit of it. I don't think we're in any immediate danger of AI completely taking the jobs of writers.
No. Holy shit. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish it.
That's awesome.
It is. Oh. It is literary ambient.
Yeah.
Like, I got a chapter and a half in, and I'm just like nodding off.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's only
no.
6,000 words, and I don't know if I'm able to get through it. Like, holy. Like,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Anyway, that's for a future episode. But yeah, that is something that took me about 20 minutes to do, and that just blew my mind. But not in a good way. Outside of that, I'm still working on my next book. I'm getting closer. I'm down to like the last like chapter and a half that I'm trying to get that first draft on.
were you convinced just to use AI for that?
No, not anymore. Can you imagine like just use it on the last chapter? Like feed it the whole book and be like, now give me a final chapter, and just way to not stick the landing. I mean, my God in heaven, it's so. Anyway, so I am working on that. I'm stalled out a little bit on it. Not really, just because of life events, really. Not because I don't want to finish it, but I feel like I have a little bit of time. I want to have it done by July.
Okay.
Spoiler alert: this is not July. We're way before July right now, so I feel like I have the time to finish it, and I am going through and kind of doing second and third drafts on it while doing first drafts on the last, which I normally don't do. That's kind of like a big no-no normally for me. But I'm breaking the rule on it because I was having a lot of fun kind of getting down other drafts and putting in some ideas to
Yeah.
make the ending fit right and stuff. But yeah, I've just been doing that really. Kind of put the Zed and Zia outline on hold for a second here, just until I can get this done. My brother gave me kind of like a time frame to get it done, and so I'm gonna get that done and actually start writing that. But that'll be after this. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. And for those of you who are still listening to us after the longest intro we've ever had, no, I'm just kidding.
That was the episode. Okay.
No, hey, we actually have a topic today, and it's one I'm really excited about. So we're going to be talking about audience surrogate characters, which for those of you who don't know, Wesley, what are those?
So an audience surrogate character is usually a principal character. They're not necessarily the main character or the protagonist but they are usually a point of view character at least.
Yeah.
And the idea is that they're going to experience the world as a newcomer to it. So they're brand new to the situation or the setting, and it becomes a much more natural way of getting the exposition across for the story, because it gives you that vehicle to have those exposition dumps through dialogue or through the character seeing things for the first time, where, that wouldn't really make sense if that's your day to day. You're not seeing that you're not experiencing that as a first time, like kind of the same way, like you put art on your wall, right?
Right.
And, at first it's like, okay, this is a really cool painting. I love this. 3 months later, you walk by that and you don't even notice it's there.
So true. So true.
So, yeah, it really helps in that. It's often employed in like a fantastical setting or something that has magic or technology, sci-fi, fantasy. You see it kind of a lot. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't necessarily have to be. It can be a very mundane situation where you just have to get something new across.
Yeah, yeah. And you see it a lot in films, especially. And if you've listened to this podcast at all, you both know.
That's about accurate, actually.
You
no, actually, I think we're up to 3 listeners now.
Yeah. You know that we're both big fans of film and bringing that process into writing books. And so when I was like thinking of like examples of this and so on, then you were too, I couldn't think of a lot of book examples, even though I know they're there and I've read them, because I think it's more subtle when it's done in a book form, than like you have the big reveal on screen, the doors open to like the troll market and the character walks through. It's the camera pans, or Harry Potter goes to Diagon Alley for the first time and he's like, oh my god.
Welcome, Harry, to Diagon Alley.
It's funny that's like the first example you come up to right after you're saying, well, I think of films.
Yeah. Wow.
Right?
Yeah. No, that's, yep.
Boo! Boo!
Yep.
But I mean, the films have been around for so long and they've left such an impression. It kind of,
yeah.
Well, I'm actually fine to admit I've never read the books. I don't actually like her writing, but I have seen all of the films. I read the first few chapters and I was like, this is not
your cup of tea.
No.
So anyway, going back to the surrogate character, the audience surrogate character, when I like the idea of using it instead of general exposition, right? It's a really easy, and it probably should have been our exposition episode, actually. I think we did touch on it a little bit, but it's one of the easiest ways to have exposition, is to have that character who's the, kind of the fish out of water, they're unfamiliar, and so on. How do you think, like, as a writer, we can use this idea in our books, especially if it's not a main character. Because that is one of the things. Now, Harry Potter is a bad example, but in general, you're right. A lot of times it's like a secondary character who they're revealing it through.
It is. So, like, one of my favorite examples of this is Watson from the Sherlock Holmes books. But yeah, like, it's less so in any, like, I've seen a number of interpretations in film for it, but if you ever read any of the, original Arthur Conan Doyle books, like, Watson is basically just there to ask, questions so that Sherlock can answer them and look smart.
I was thinking of that today as just a general. I was like thinking of, just literature in general, and I was like, oh, Sherlock Holmes, like, oh my God. It's like, it's such a good example though, because it's so subtle. He's the partner who's just like, how did you deduce that? Where did she go? Why is the murder weapon?
Yeah.
This.
Okay, you've got questions.
Yeah, where are we going?
Yeah, it's a really cool device there.
But that's not exactly answering your question though, because like he's kind of he is one of the main characters, and kind of like, it's been a long time since I read those books, so somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's the one that's in the fiction of it, writing the story down.
Right.
So I think actually maybe a better example for what you're talking about is from the Lord of the Rings books, where Samwise, I mean, kind of all the hobbits do to an extent, like all of the hobbits become this sort of surrogate character for the audience as they go through Middle Earth, because all of the other people around them are more experienced and more knowledgeable and everything like that. But Samwise in particular is that one that's looking at everything with that wonder, that childlike sense.
Yeah.
Potatoes.
But it's not from his point of view.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody listening has probably read The Lord of the Rings, and if not, they should.
At least watch the movies.
I don't know that they did it the same. Like, I don't know that I would say that they're audience surrogate characters as much in the films. Did you?
Not really. The director's cuts maybe a little bit. I feel like they leaned a little bit more into that with the director's cuts.
Okay.
Which are really good. I recommend normally I wouldn't be like, you wouldn't spend 5 hours of your life watching a movie or however ridiculously long they are. I would highly recommend the director's cuts of The Lord of the Rings.
I do have the extended version of Fellowship, but that's the only one I've extended version of.
Yeah. Yeah. They're good. They're really good. I feel like they play into that a little bit more of the lore, and it kind of presenting itself to the characters as they're making their journey and so on. So those are obviously some examples. We listed Harry Potter, Sherlock Holmes, Lord of the Rings, and these are all really well known examples, obviously. And I like the idea of what you said, that, usually it's like a fantastical thing, right? Like sci-fi, fantasy,
right,
something like that. But I actually, in kind of thinking about this episode, you could do it in really any circumstance. When you are revealing something, it could be someone starting a new job.
Yep.
And they come in, they're like, well, why on Fridays at 2:00 do you guys do this? You know what I mean? And
we have one of those examples written here in our list here.
Yeah.
Ishmael from Moby Dick.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a little bit different for us now because that's really old. But when it was written, that was contemporary.
Right.
But it was about a vocation that most people had never experienced. So, I mean,
yeah.
How many regular people had been on a whaling ship?
Me? No, I haven't. Joking. No, I really like that thought concept of the reveal to a world, through their eyes. I was thinking about other people. Guillermo del Toro does this in almost every single one of his films, and I think one of the best examples is the secret agent in the first Hellboy movie. Was it John Myers? Wanted to make sure I said the name right. Who's the secret agent who knows nothing about the whole world with Hellboy and like their underground group and stuff like that. And the way they bring him into it of just shock and awe, is just so fantastic. It was one of the first times, because you see it all the time in movies, but it was one of the first times I remember watching that movie and like realizing what it was I was watching.
Turn the pages, please, if you don't mind.
I mean, like, oh, they're feeding me an entire world that is so fictional, but I'm accepting it because the character who they're bringing into it is accepting it in real time, and you're just kind of like hanging out on their shoulder. And it's a really subtle trick that you see in movies. Do you think it's obviously it's kind of easy to do in movies because they do it all the freaking time?
They do.
Do you think it's harder to do in a book?
Do you mean like, is it harder to pull off, or is it harder to write, or?
I think, is it harder to, because like normally when we would be having these conversations on this show, it would be, here's a trick, here's a tip, right? I think we just wanted to talk about this because we both think it's a really cool concept.
It is.
It's a neat idea. It's like one of our favorite ideas. The question is, like, is it easy to do?
I don't know. I've never done it.
Right.
So all of my books, every book that I've written, whether it's been published or whether I've published it or not, has been, I guess maybe this is just part of my style, but I drop the reader in the middle of the shit.
Yeah.
And, catch up.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Maybe I should try this at some point, but yeah, I've never done it. It's something that I've noticed for a long time in films and books, and comic books as well. But I've never tried it. What about you?
So basically the first Zed and Zia book does this pretty substantially. For those of you out there who have read that book, which is none of you, just kidding. No, the first book, basically you have Zed and you have Zia, and Zia is this alien who she has ran away from home at a very young age, and she's traveling the galaxy and getting into all kinds of adventures and stuff like that, and finds her way back to her home moon, as it were. And Zed is basically, he's never seen anything beyond, basically his job in this house. This is, he's never been outside of the planet, the moon, and he's never seen other creatures and all this stuff. So she kind of
hobbit stuck in the Shire.
Yeah. So she kind of hijacks Frodo. I mean, hijacks Zed, and takes him out into the universe. And it's pretty cool because I didn't even really realize I was doing it, I think is more my point. Because all of a sudden I just started writing these plot points in there where basically they're just answering his questions. And I was able to be like, he's like, how does, the light drive work or whatever, like how do we travel that fast? And they got to explain it to him to give him a heads up, so you got to experience that with him. And there's a shot, I say shot because my brother does illustrations for it, in that first book where as they're traveling, you can see like the stars and everything in Zed's eye, and like this look of like awe on his face. And because I wanted the reader to kind of experience that with him. So I think it is a really cool tool. But it's not necessarily a cheat. I think that's the thing.
No.
That's like the point I'm getting to, is like it requires some really good finesse to pull off that kind of trick within your book.
Right.
To have the big reveal of your world through the eyes of a newcomer or an outcast or just someone who's oblivious to the whole thing. But I love that. You see it. God, I mean, how many movies can you name? It's just, Men in Black. Boom, first movie. I mean, great.
Perfect example.
Yeah, absolutely. I think did you say Neo and the Matrix? I think was one of them.
I think we got that written down, but we haven't talked about it yet. I was
Yeah.
actually going to mention that as like kind of a heavy-handed example
Right.
that still works, but it is very, very obvious in that one. Like that one's not subtle.
Right. I remember watching that first movie, and while all the other movies were basically like sci-fi, holding hands out, whatever, CGI fight fest. That first one, especially the beginning of it, which is my favorite part, reads like a mystery. Follow the white rabbit. It's these little clues that he's following, and you as the audience are just coming along with him. No idea what's going on.
Nope.
And that's why that movie was so mind-blowing for a lot of people, is because you didn't know necessarily, like I know the first time I watched it, I didn't know what it was about.
Oh no.
Not really. And just having my mind just like blown by that first movie, because I was just like, oh, that's the reveal, and you experience it in real time with him.
And you're so involved in that you don't even realize that they're using this heavy-handed exposition technique.
Yeah.
It works perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, so brilliant, because I think because the concept is so big, it works so brilliantly, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, you're right, it is heavy-handed exposition. I mean, you don't get more exposition than sitting across from Lawrence Fishburne in the leather chair and him explaining to you like the last like 500 years of human history.
And,
like verbatim.
Almost every one of Neo's lines in the entire movie is a question.
Right? But why?
Yeah. But, I mean, fuck, like, I could talk about that movie all day. But, like, I remember seeing that for the first time and being like, why is this woman risking her life to answer a phone?
Right.
Like, in that very first scene, like, she's charging, that truck is going to smash the payphone. And, if we have any kid listeners, like, they used to have these phones in booths that... They're like cell phones, but they're connected to a cord, and
you have to put money in.
Yeah.
And like coins. Do you know what coins are?
Shit. But yeah, that one's pretty heavy handed, but it still works. Adney from Inception.
Yeah, that's a good
kind
one.
of the same thing. Like,
yeah.
And maybe that's the trick. Maybe you hit on it, and then I never really thought of it before, but I think you're onto something. Maybe the larger the concept, the easier it is to get away with it being heavy handed, and maybe the more familiar the concept, the more subtle you need to be.
Yeah.
There might be something to that.
Well, and it's interesting because we've talked about Inception before on the show, and I know we both like that movie.
I like it a lot,
and we both have small issues with it as well.
Yes.
But having said that, I am much more forgiving of that movie because of the high concept. Again, I don't think they needed to be quite as heavy-handed with it, but you're absolutely right. I think the first time they explain something in that movie, it just kind of washes over you like water. Like you don't even realize they're doing it. You're just being enveloped by the idea.
Yeah.
And there's so much, just walking through the streets and them explaining the subconscious mind and how it will attack you and this and that.
Now, in a dream, our mind continuously does this. We create and perceive our world simultaneously, and our mind does this so well that we don't even know what's happening.
And again, I think the only time I have a problem with that movie is like the third time they're explaining it down the line, where I'm like, you already did this, man. Like, move on. But for the most part, I'm very forgiving of it because it is such a big concept, and because without knowing that world and that fact, you can't really enjoy that movie, right? If it just happened and they just everybody on screen just knew how everything worked and they didn't have that surrogate character, like that'd be the most confusing fucking movie you've ever watched.
Yeah, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I know that I've seen films where they just explain nothing and it is kind of more high concept, and you're just like lost through the whole thing, and you're just like,
Yeah.
click, I'm done with this. Like,
Yeah. And to be fair, there's merit to it sometimes. Like, I and even within that, one of my favorite movies, it's in my top 5 of all time, is called The Endless. And it's about these two brothers that leave a cult when they're really young, and they go back to it when they get older, because basically the real world isn't working out for them. And they go back and strange things happen. It doesn't really explain much. But it has to do with like time loops and all kinds of stuff. And but even though they don't get heavy-handed with it, and it is like high concept, you're still experiencing the moments with the brothers as they're perplexed by it and they're trying to figure it out. Like, even at the end of the movie, they don't explain everything, but they don't know it either. They're just kind of as confused as you are. And I think that's when that does kind of work, right? Like, you're going on this journey with this character, you're discovering things with them, and by the end of it, they're not smarter than you. You're both
Okay.
You're just like, yeah, that was weird, kind of thing.
do
But
you
they
think
still-
that that's actually an example of an audience surrogate in that case then? Or
I kind of do, because there's that element of so when I think of like an audience surrogate, I kind of think of the element of awe, like
Okay.
like that, like the grandiose entrance, the reveal, the curtains open. And I think if you're like reflecting with a character and experiencing it with them, and you're like confused with them, and you're shocked by something with them, I think it's a good example. And not like in a jump scare way. I'm not talking about just like those kind of reveals, but where you're slowly discovering something. I think that's kind of like what I would consider like an audience surrogate character, is when you're discovering something along with a character. You're learning
right.
with them. It
Yeah,
just
step
is
by step.
Yeah, it just is in that particular case. You do that the whole way through, but you don't necessarily get the final answer at the end, because it doesn't go as heavy-handed as some might go. Welcome to our writing podcast, where we talk about movies for an hour.
This one's been mostly about movies, but I did want to steer us towards a different area of movies, because we do have one listener that seems to really appreciate our M. Night Shyamalan references, and I was kind of trying to think, has M. Night Shyamalan used this technique? And I don't think so, but I wanted to ask you if you can think of an example.
I mean, Bruce Willis discovers he's dead with you.
Yeah.
No, that's
more
like
of a
that's a
mystery.
reveal. Yeah, that's a reveal.
What a twist.
Right? What a twist.
What a twist!
I'm trying to think, maybe a little bit like Lady in the Water would be the only one I could maybe
I haven't seen
think
that
of
one.
a little. So Paul Giamatti's character in it is like a hotel manager, and he gets roped into this like kind of childhood fairy tale thing, weird, wacky M. Night thing, and he is trying to put together a puzzle, because basically she has to have these certain people do certain things at a certain time for this like whatever legacy to come true, or whatever prophecy, that's the word I'm looking for, prophecy to come true. And so he's like trying to figure out all the tenants in the building, which one represents each of these characters. Again, it's more of a mystery, and but because up until the movie starts, he doesn't believe in water nymphs and wolves that are made out of grass, which is like what's in the movie.
What?
Yeah. What?
What a twist!
Because he doesn't believe in that, it kind of is that audience surrogate character, because like you're introducing a concept that seems crazy. Like it's just, again, I think it's that shock and awe of something where you're revealing something to the audience, and the only way they're willing to accept it is through the eyes of another character.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that one a little bit. I don't know. But we just had to throw in M. Night because it's been a few episodes, and he's like, "Hey, I'm missing the M. Night."
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, he's not going to, see this for a month, but
Right.
whatever.
He'll stop listening to us by then too.
Probably.
As
nobody can listen to us for that long. Fuck.
As our listener base actually goes down instead of up. Be like, I
Doesn't
didn't
have
think
that.
that was the trend.
Right. Can't go down that far.
That's true.
Yeah. So, do we have any other examples or anything we want to talk about with this?
I just not necessarily examples. I think on a practicality note, you've sat here and listened to us talk for 40 minutes about basically a concept that's out there in a lot of movies and some books as well. But if you're a writer and you want to use this concept, I think a good rule for it would be the more heavy-handed you're going to be with it, perhaps the bigger concept you try to have within your story. And make that reveal mean something. Like, if you're going to use this as, like, you're going to bring in the reader as the character who's going to experience it, make it a grand experience. Don't just be like, he walked into a room and there was a bunch of stuff he'd never seen before. You know what I mean? Like, you really want to describe it. You want to really paint a picture that's just going to leave the reader just enamored with what's going to come next.
That actually made me just think of possibly the best book example that I've got, and I don't know why I didn't think of it before.
Nice.
So I've mentioned Guy Gabriel Kay a few times now.
Yeah.
My absolute favorite fantasy author. His first real books that he put out that were not with like he worked on the Silmarillion from Tolkien with Christopher Tolkien. But the first book that he wrote that he put out, I think, was called the Fionvar Tapestry. It was like a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was early for him, and he hadn't really developed his own style yet. So it was a little bit of it was very Tolkien-esque.
Right.
But he did some things that were very different. One of the things that he did was his Gandalf type character was a wizard, but he actually went to our world and grabbed these regular people out, this group of regular people, and brought them to this other world to
that's cool.
basically help him fix things.
Yeah.
And that was, again, I think his later books are better because he found his own style, but still, those are very, very cool books. Great example of this. Very vivid storytelling. And how much more audience surrogate can you get than people from our world going to a fantasy world?
Just literally bringing the audience to them.
Right.
You got me thinking about that when you said it, and I was thinking about kind of like a reverse of this, which is always fun. I always find this entertaining. Is like a reverse audience surrogate where you're bringing an out of water fish character into our world and how they react to it. I'm trying to think of some really good examples, but
there was a movie where they brought it wasn't actually a Disney princess, but Snow White or something like that.
Oh yeah. Enchanted.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I never actually saw the whole thing, but I've seen bits.
Yeah. What's the Brendan Fraser one? Is it Blast from the Past?
I don't know.
Yeah, Blast from the Past. I'm looking it up right now, making sure I'm saying the right movie. Yeah, with Brendan Fraser, where his family thinks there's a nuclear explosion, and so they go down this bomb shelter, and they're stuck down there for 20, 30 years.
I have seen that.
And then they come out into the real world.
What are you looking at?
Oh, my lucky stars! A Negro!
Say what?
And it's funny, though, because that's it's kind of the same thing to experience our reality, something not fantastical through a fantastical character's eyes. And that's still in a weird way an audience surrogate because it shows the absurdity of our reality in a weird way, right? It's a reverse of it. But you're still, I think anytime an audience surrogate character, I think maybe it's a really broad term. Maybe it's broader
It
than
is.
we're even thinking. But I think it's like anytime you're a character on screen is bringing the audience along on a journey where they don't know what the next step is going to bring them as far as a reveal. So it's like breadcrumbs. You know what I mean? And you're right there with them, just going like, okay, what's the next thing? Oh, I didn't expect that to happen. That I never would think of that, you know? So in that way, to a lesser extent, you almost do it with everything, right? Because you want to bring your audience along to the ride. But there's a certain example of this where, like you were saying, it's introducing world building to an audience without having to like heavy-handed it directly to them. You're like basically talking over the character's shoulder to the audience, if that makes sense.
Maybe that's something I could do with that vampire book.
Yeah.
Maybe I could actually use this technique for that and just change some of the ideas that I had around with it, which I've only got like basic structure. So
yeah, it'd be cool. Like I like it's one of my favorite. It's weird. It's like like I do a lot of art and stuff like that, and it's like a certain color that you love to like use, but there's never like a right time to use it. Like you love that color, and you're just like, oh man, that's a gorgeous shade of blue or whatever. But I never am drawing anything that needs that blue, right? That's kind of how I feel about this a lot of times. Is like it's not always needed, but it's a really good color. Like it's a really cool concept to just bring into your writing, whether it's through an exercise or your book or whatever you're doing. So, yeah.
Well, next week we can just sit down and live on the air. Well, not live, but record, and we'll just flesh out my outline together.
I like that. If nothing
in front
more,
of everybody.
right? You know what's kind of fun about this though? Like I love that we came full circle from talking about because that's the whole thing with fiction focus is that we're not making millions or thousands or hundreds of dollars off doing this, right? Like as writers, we're not professional full-time writers, but we love the craft and we've done it long enough that we feel like we have something to add to the conversation. But it is, like the intro says, it is about kind of like our agonies and like when we hit that writer's block and when we're not sure what our next step is going to be and when we're trying to flesh out ideas. Because more than anything, I mean, we want to talk about writing and so on. So if you're a writer and you're listening, maybe you get some ideas from it of what to do or not do. If you're a reader, maybe it just makes you interested in the craft, but also for each other. We sit down once a week and we talk about this stuff. And usually after I'm done, I feel kind of energized, and I go, oh yeah, that was a cool, I enjoyed talking about the craft and now it has inspired me to want to go write this thing or do this thing. So, I mean, that's kind of you're just on a journey with us, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
If anything. Yeah, so join us next week when we do an AI episode. Maybe.
Oh God. I mean,
Did I just promise it?
Maybe it's just time we just pull that Band-Aid off and do it.
I think so. Thank you all for listening and join us next time. Bye.
Bye.